Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr Chairman, I want to raise, and I'm sure the Attorney-General will take this seriously, despite his accusations of politicisation during question time. I want to refer firstly in the estimates report to the disaster response, which is under Vote Attorney-General, where he makes reference to Pike River and also the Christchurch earthquake, and that is the starting point, sir, page 39 on the document, the estimates document. And I want to raise these issues in a serious way with the Attorney-General, because there is a serious issue going forward in terms of the expenditure of public funds. The Attorney-General will be aware that the Christchurch quake families have applied to him on 2 occasions to receive independent legal support for the upcoming Commission of Inquiry into the Christchurch earthquake. The Attorney-General will also be aware that his Prime Minister met with, this is future expenditure of money referred to in this vote, and I can quote from it, so it is within standing orders, in case the Attorney-General doesn't want this debate to happen, and if he doesn't want this debate to happen, that will be a telling comment on him and his government. And he may laugh, and he may accuse me of politicisation, but can I say to the Attorney, I don't really care what he says in that respect, and neither do the Quake families. He can abuse members, accuse them of politicising. What those families care about, and what members on this side care about, is trying to convince him, Mr Brownlee and the Prime Minister, who at the Aurora Centre in Christchurch gave a personal commitment, noted to him in a letter from the Quake families' lawyers of the 23rd of July, gave a personal commitment, sir, to doing everything that they could. And I want to quote from that letter. The primary expression of concern and support upon which they, that is the Quake families, rely, was made by the Prime Minister in his first meeting with the families at the Aurora Centre here in Christchurch. On that occasion, he, being the Prime Minister, made it very clear that the government believed that the families' interests were paramount and that the government would assist them in any way it reasonably could. Therefore, that is the unquote, that is the expectation, of course, Attorney-General, through you, Mr Chair, that the Quake families relied on for the support. Now, the issues that are here are that the application was made to the Attorney-General for future expenditure of public funds, the first time, given that they rely on the Prime Minister's advice that he would do anything to support them, as he did and as the Attorney-General did in making the right decision, and I applaud it and I support it in respect of Pike River. But on the 2 occasions, the first occasion, the second occasion, that the Quake families actually asked the government to help them, on both occasions, sir, they were turned down. And I quote again from the letter. That being the case, this government's second rejection of their being the Quake families' reasonable request is proving very difficult for them to comprehend. As one elderly member of the Quake families group recently put it, quote, are John Key's assurances worth nothing? The very first time we seek assistance, we are rejected out of hand. Now, what I put to the Attorney-General is this. I've heard various explanations, and I accept that I'm not a lawyer and I don't have the qualifications to be an expert in this field, but I do scratch my head, as others do, when we look at the precedents of Pike River, when we look at the precedents of Cave Creek, when the Attorney makes reference in a sort of strange way to the Victorian bushfires, all in a vain attempt to justify his position that he should not provide independent legal counsel for these families. And I say to the Attorney-General, I mean no malice, and I assume there's no malice intended by his stance. I'll do him that honour. But no one, including the families, can ascertain actually what the problem is and why the government constantly refuses to apply the same benchmark as they did in Pike River and assist these families. The only excuses that have been put up is that there is counsel assisting the Commission, that there is a liaison officer that will talk with the families. Well, I know that the Attorney-General has made arguments in a court. I've only observed arguments in a court, but I put this to him. In a practical sense, as was the position with Cave Creek, how on earth can a counsel assisting the Commissioner do both their job, even with the assistance of a liaison officer, to assist the Commission, and give justice to those families in covering all the issues that they want covered? I give him a practical example. So the morning of the Commission, there may be a series of witnesses that are called. I'm sure the Attorney-General is listening and taking this seriously. And the families, sir, Mr Chair,
Honourable Clayton.
and the families, sir, will have a series of questions that they wish asked. But they don't know what they don't know, and as the Commission progresses through the day, are they going to be in a position where they've got to pass notes across to the council assisting the Commission? Are they going to be in a position where they're going to use up all the time of the council assisting the Commission to try and get their questions across? That's just a practical difficulty that the lawyers have explained to me. The real issue is this, sir. The real issue is whether the process, regardless of the relevance of the Victorian bushfires or anything else, the real issue, sir, is whether the process put in place satisfies the families, regardless of any examples that the Attorney-General might want to raise and analogies he may want to draw, whether the proposed scheme of arrangement and the process has any chance of satisfying the families' need to be involved in the Commission. And I bring this warning to the Attorney-General. It would be a tragedy, another tragedy apart from the 181 people who perished, if because of the Attorney-General's staunch position, going back on the commitment that the Prime Minister made, if he sticks to his position, it would be a tragedy if the Commission progressed and those families either lost confidence in the Commission or distrusted the Commission because they felt they didn't have an independent voice, making sure no stone was unturned so that every question, relevant or irrelevant, that those families choose to put forward was put. They mean no malice, sir. They simply ask for representation. And there is a danger. And whether the Attorney-General wants to throw up international example after international example to try and justify his position, the guts of this issue is whether this process will satisfy the needs of those families. And I say again to him that I applaud his position in respect of Pike River. I think all New Zealanders applaud that. But I ask the Attorney-General to put aside the sort of legalese and tell us what problem, what mischief would be created, an issue of money, if the Attorney-General acquiesced to those families and said, we will provide you with independent legal counsel. Where is the mischief in doing that? Because it isn't good enough for the Attorney-General to say he knows best for those families, and what he's provided, counsel assisting the Commission and a liaison officer, that's what they need. It is not for the Attorney-General to determine what those families who are both survivors and lost loved ones need. It is for those families to determine that, in the same way as now they are being supported by Mr Bernie Monk and the Pike River families and the media and most of the commentators I've read, that they deserve that independent counsel. I say it would be a safeguard to the Commission, because the excuse could never be put forward that every resource was not put to assisting those families. And I ask the Attorney-General to address this. Where is the mischief or the problem in providing those families, even if he disagrees it's necessary, which he says it's unnecessary, of course, where is the mischief created? It is not a matter of dollars. Mr Brownlee has appropriated $5.5 billion. Mr Brownlee has sought fit, of course, to give Sarah double the fee, Sarah $1,000 a day, so that the government can get legal advice, even though that's not justified. But Mr Brownlee and Mr Finlayson and the government and the Prime Minister don't feel it's justified that these families should have independent legal advice. And I ask the Attorney-General this. Presumably he stands by his Prime Minister and he stands by the personal and verbal commitments that he made to those families that now the Prime Minister, for some bizarre reason, will not affirm or not comment on. The families are quite happy to have those comments confirmed publicly, but for some reason the Prime Minister, who loves to say what people want to hear, but when it comes to the crunch hasn't delivered. He said he'd support the families 100%. They've asked for independent legal support. No lawyer I've talked to can tell me what the mischief is that would be created if the Attorney-General granted them legal support, putting aside all the legalese and analogies the member likes to put forward in this House. But Pike River, he did the right thing. There was independent legal support at Cave Creek. But for some reason, the only difference I can see between the Pike River tragedy and this tragedy is, yes, one was a natural disaster, but of course 181 people died. A larger quantum, not that should make any difference and not that I mean any respect to the Pike River families. So I ask the Attorney-General to go on the record and explain in detail where would the mischief lie if he acquiesced, buried his pride, honoured the Prime Minister's commitment and allowed these families to have independent counsel. What would be the problem that's created? I can't see one. Apart from allowing these families to leave no stone unturned and honour those that were lost, and sleep at night knowing that no stone was unturned and they'd represented their loved ones. I asked the Attorney-General, would he address those points?
The question is that vote, Attorney-General, stand part of the schedule. Those of that opinion will say aye. Point of order, Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
I know this is exceptionally unusual, but through you, sir, I make a plea to the Attorney-General. Families, I'm told, are watching these proceedings now, and I make a plea to him to at least do the courtesy of a response.
That is not a point of order. Question is that vote, Attorney-General, stand part of the schedule. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that vote, Parliamentary Council, stand part of the schedule. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that vote, treaty negotiations, stand part of the schedule. Honourable Tauhenere.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to